Wait, did that say?
Record to the cloud.
To the cloud, yes.
Yeah.
And all the microphones?
Yep.
Should be.
How come it said it didn't say,
What?
doesn't it usually say we're recording?
It says, well, it says stop recording, so I imagine we're recording.
But it usually announces
Well, maybe there's no announcement.
It's top left, it says recording.
No, it must say.
Oh, yeah, it says recording up there.
So the voice-
I heard it say it's recording. I could hear it on the screen.
Why can't I hear
Yeah.
Elizabeth? Her voice is turned off?
Well, she's not.
Jeremy, say something.
No, I think Elizabeth.
Jeremy's muted.
He's not.
Can you hear me?
I just
Am I
unmuted.
We hear
Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear anybody.
You don't hear me?
Television up.
I can hear you, Jeremy, but I guess I can't hear us.
Oh, this-
Okay,
That's
so
fine.
yeah, I
Oh,
can hear
with-
Liz, I can hear you guys, but you can't hear me.
Yeah, it's gotta go to like 40.
Oh,
How about now? Can you hear me?
Oh, all right, that's probably.
All right, cool.
Did you guys hear the word recording in progress on your end?
No, they couldn't.
Yeah,
I heard
Yes.
recording in progress.
I heard it too.
Okay, we're gonna start. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It is 7:03, if that's right. Everybody please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of July 10, 2023 was included in the list of meetings notice sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat Courier News on January 5, 2023, posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall on that date, and has remained continuously posted as required. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the borough. Before we do the roll call, I'd like a motion, please, to deputize Maureen Guyver as our deputy clerk.
Tilly will move.
Any discussion? Roll call, please. Now I'm gonna make you do a roll call because it's gonna, actually, Chris Messina could do the roll call. But he's not here, or I could do the roll call as mayor. So I'm gonna do the roll call on that vote. Okay. Council President Long,
Yes,
Council Vice President Tilly,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti. That was a yes, she was nodding and saying yes. Okay. Councilman Parker,
yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Yes.
And I don't think that Councilman Johnston is on. Okay, having done that, Deputy Clerk, Ms. Ivers, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Carroll.
Here.
Councilman Johnston is not here. Councilman Parker.
Here.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Here,
Councilwoman Engelhardt. Here. Council VP Tilly.
Here.
And Council President Long.
Here,
Thank you. Before we start the full meeting, I have two orders of business. The first is to ask for a moment of silence for Edna Petrick, a longtime Flemington resident, I think 93 years in this town, but she served literally decades as a volunteer for the borough on the planning board with Fleming Castle, with the beautification committee, with Shade Tree. Decades on some of those committees. She was personally one of the people responsible for preserving and saving the Fleming Castle Museum, and just a grand lady, a grand lady. So if you join me in a moment of silence for Edna, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like a motion to amend the agenda. I have two amendments. One is to add on to the agenda a resolution rescinding Revax award for Bloomfield Avenue, which I will discuss the details in my mayor's report. Can I have a motion? Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Rossetti.
yes,
Ms. Engelhardt.
Yes.
Ms. Tilly.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Mr. Johnston.
He's not here.
He's out.
The second amendment to the agenda is to add an executive session under potential litigation regarding the cannabis award that is on the agenda tonight. I'd like the award itself tabled to follow the executive session. Can I have a motion to amend to add the executive session and to move the award of the cannabis license following the executive session?
Tilly, move.
Is there a second?
Parker, second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Ms. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Thank you. So first on the agenda, we have presentations. Hopefully short and leaving lots of room for questions in case regarding the request by the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, along with the Municipal Planning Board, to have the Borough Council adopt a historic map update. With us is Richard Giffen, the HPC Chair, and John Hatch, historic architect, who is their consultant. Gentlemen,
Thank you. So can I share the screen now?
if you
Yes,
can,
please.
I can't, but if you can.
No, we did test it earlier, it worked earlier.
I have to do something.
No, he's good.
Oh, no,
He's
he's
doing
gonna do it all. Okay.
See that one? Yeah. Oh. Something like that. There we go. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for inviting us here tonight. We have 10 minutes and going to try and keep it below that. So go straight into it. So this first slide is just the background of where we are. So I guess for the people who are new to Council, the short summary is finishing off what we started in 2019. So we were asked to do an update in 2018. The Mayor and Council authorised us to engage Clark Hits, who John Hatch is with, to help us update the map. So in 2019, we did extensive work. We had we reviewed all the properties. We have almost 600 historic buildings in Flemington. So we reviewed, photographed, walked around. We also had internet public mailings to the whole of borough through our postcard. Received feedback, and we held a number of workshops. So we basically did a lot of work in 2019, and we ended up with a memo summarising what we recommended as the change to the historic map, and that recommended 19 buildings to be upgraded, 1 downgraded, and 36 to be added. So that was sent to the planning board. Planning boards administered the changes to the map. After some backward and forward, the feedback we got from planning board and others was that no boundary changes were possible. So we were basically told at the time we couldn't add any buildings. So after some backwards and forwards, we then produced a new memo in June of 2020, which only made changes within the existing boundary. And that was then adopted by the planning board in October 2020. So that was the colours on the screen that I tried to summarise. It's a bit complicated. Basically, in 2020, it was the map was changed with no boundary changes. And at the October meeting, planning board noted the intent to very soon adopt the boundary change version. So what's happening now is planning board now wants to make the boundary change. So that's the background, if that makes sense. And then this is a quick slide here to explain why we regularly update the map. And the first thing there is it's normally it's required as a review as part of the master plan, which is typically every 10 years. So we typically do it that anyway. But also it's actually required as one of our historic ordinances, the 1631L, states that we're supposed to maintain and expand the map as required. And it's also required, if you remember, we're actually pursuing certified local government, and as part of that, we're going to have to update the map. So the main reason for doing the map is that things change over time. Some buildings get demolished, some buildings get upgraded, some get changed, roads get realigned. So we have to do this exercise every few years. And as John mentioned in a minute, the main thing we get into there is reviewing the period of significance. So what dictates the historic district is the period of significance. I'll explain in a minute. And then the other thing to highlight is that it's a positive thing if it maintains property values. There's some research that actually says it actually improves property values having a historic designation. So I'm now going to hand over to John, and John's going to take us through in more detail what we did back in 2019.
So first, I'm just gonna, a little bit of context, and some of you know this very well, but just, there are really two kinds of historic districts. There's a state and national registered historic districts, buildings and districts that are registered on the state and national, on that list. And this is really, it's an acknowledgement of historic significance. And for a town or municipality, or a level of government, there are also some additional requirements. If you're going to do work on a building that's within a registered historic district, you're going to have to get project authorization from the state historic, the state SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. For private property owners, it's really only incentives. If you're an income producing property that's in a state or a national district, you then can become eligible to get federal historic tax credits or state historic tax credits if you're doing a major renovation that qualifies for those tax credits. Another little incentive for a municipality is if you have a municipally owned building that's in a state and national registered district, you can become eligible to apply for historic grants from the New Jersey Historic Trust. Now, the controls all happen when a district is locally designated. So that's when it falls under the local historic preservation ordinance and when it gets reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. Next. So Flemington, the Flemington Historic District is actually both. It's listed on the state and national registers of historic places, and it's a locally designated district. And the issue, the National Register nomination for Flemington was completed in 1980. That's quite a long time ago. The standards for those kind of nominations have changed. So the nomination that's on file is actually pretty generic, not as detailed as it would be today, and its period of significance is somewhat arbitrary. And it's a locally designated historic district. The boundaries of the district were modestly reconfigured about 10 years ago to include another property. But it hasn't, over the years from whenever the Historic Preservation Ordinance in Flemington up till now was implemented up till now, there have been very few changes. What became apparent over the years at the HPC is that there were inconsistencies. People would come to the commission and say, I think my house is significant and it should certainly look significant. Why isn't it designated as significant on the map? My house is in the district and it looks just like a house that's up the street that isn't in the district. Why is that the case? So for quite a while on the HPC, there was discussion about making this all consistent, and that's what this project was about, making all of those designations and making the boundaries consistent with what is actually the case on the ground. So the project goals were and are to update the base map of the historic district to reflect current conditions. So as Richard said, there have been road changes, demolitions, new buildings, relocations. We also, and that's complete, and that was actually approved. We completed an extensive, many hundreds of photographs of the existing conditions in the district. We reviewed and updated the period of significance for the district. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in more detail in a moment. We made recommendations for changes to the designation of individual structures, as Richard said, and we made recommendations for adjusting the boundary because we clarified the period of significance. Go ahead. So this was the map back in 2012. And I don't know if you can see, or if I can, you can kind of, I'm just going to take your, sorry. So some of the inconsistencies, there were buildings that had designations that were floating outside the boundary up there, if you can see it. And in other locations, there was a floating piece of the district, the cemetery, that was floating completely separate from the district. So just in the way it had been designated originally, there were inconsistencies, and it was confusing for the HPC to deal with those structures. So we started by looking at what actually changed. There were a number of road realignments at both ends of town. Go ahead. We identified where there had been demolitions and relocations and new construction. Go ahead. And then, as Richard said, we went through and reviewed every single building in the district. We matched. We did some research on certain ones that had been identified to us that might be significant, not just because of its architecture, but perhaps because of who lived there or because something important happened. And we then adjusted some of the designations, moving some structures from the designations are significant. If a building is significant architecturally, historically, or because of a person, contributing if the building is not individually significant, but because of its character and because of when it was built, contributes to the character of the district. Non-contributing is a building that was built outside the period of significance, but is not detrimental to the district. And encroaching is a building that was built outside the period of significance or significantly altered and has a negative impact on the character of the district. So we just did, I think Richard said that there were 19 buildings that we changed from contributing structures to significant. And there was one structure that we thought was had been identified. I actually forget if it was significant to contributing. Oh, actually, I think it was contributing to non-contributing because it was built outside the period of significance. So, yeah, next slide. So that was the map as approved by the planning board. So it just changed the designations, brought them up to date, corrected them, made them more consistent. Now, the period of significance for a building or a historic district refers to the time period that makes the building significant. So for some buildings, it's the moment that it was built. You know, it was built in, I don't know, 1650, and that's the most important thing about it. But for most buildings and districts, it's a period of time because significant things happen over the period of time. Many buildings change, and not just the original structure, but the changes have architectural significance. Like many towns in New Jersey, you know, the period of significance for Flemington starts with European settlement in the 18th century. And then there were several waves of development in Flemington, and those reflected local, state, and national trends. And the bulk of the borough was fully developed by the early 20th century. After World War II in Flemington, as similarly to the around the state and nationally, development patterns changed significantly. So with the onset of car culture, the kind of marketing of suburban development, suburban sprawl, development patterns in the United States and in Flemington changed drastically. So you can really see that anything built after World War II looks quite different from what was built before World War II. And what became apparent is that it's really what was built before the Great Depression. So the Great Depression is a real marker in terms of development. A fair amount of development up to the Great Depression because of what was happening economically across the country. Most development stopped. And in Flemington, a good marker is the Lindbergh trial in 1934. Kind of coincides with that same slowdown of development and construction in Flemington. So the clarified period of significance is from European settlement to 1934, to the Great Depression. 1930 to 1934, I'll say. So the research then that we did to figure out what should and should not be included architecturally in the town was we looked at mainly historic maps. So there are a lot of wonderful maps at the right here in Flemington at the Historical Society, maps all through the 19th century, and then Sanborn maps from the late 19th century to 1921. And Sanborn maps are insurance maps that in a very detailed way show that the layout of the borough and then the configuration of the building. So, and that includes their shape, the material, masonry, brick, or wood frame. And so you can really see how, if you compare those maps, really how the town developed, and it really is very interesting. And then the last thing we used was an aerial flown in 1931, which was sort of the closest we could get to our Great Depression marker. So go ahead. So here is that 19, I'm not, for the planning board presentations and for HPC, we went through all of the maps showing how the town developed. But this is really this is the 1931 aerial, and this is pointing out areas that actually had significant buildings that have been built but were not included in the historic district map. And so so we have along with our notes, so you can see those areas and where things were. So this research was the basis for our recommendations for these changes to the to that 2012 map. And it's based on what was built by the 1930s and what had not been included. And interestingly, it helps tie together, for instance, that floating cemetery. It confirms that we are not going to include, there had been these buildings kind of floating out here, and we were wondering if those should be included. No, they weren't built in the 1930s. So we're not going to recommend extending the district that way. So each of these areas very clearly had been developed, and then we checked them on the ground and confirmed the character of the buildings matched with what we had seen from our maps and the aerial. So with that, that's how we got to this map. This is what we had presented to the planning board with our recommendations. The areas in yellow are the expansions, and those would add 36 new, mainly houses to the historic district. So that is where we got to when we were told to stop that piece.
So the exercise now is to basically reintroduce the yellow areas. So this is a summary slide. Just going through. So obviously we were directed in 2019 to update the map. We recommended changes. We weren't able to expand the boundary in 2020, and now the plan is to do that. So the plan now is to expand the boundary. And at the bottom of the slide here, we've got a target schedule which we've worked out with Beth from the planning board. So right now we're presenting to Mayor and Council to update you on the progress. Then with your agreement, we will then ask John Hatch to revisit the memo we did before and produce a new memo and proposed map. We would then consider that at our HPC meeting in August, which would then be sent to the planning board, and we do a presentation to the planning board and council if you wanted. And then our understanding is then the planning board would adopt or have a public hearing, an ordinance change to hopefully adopt the revised map. A bit more than 10 minutes. Sorry
About that.
we
That was my
got
fault.
excited.
They have to recommend the ordinance change to go to 5.
So yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. Does any member of council have any questions? You've been through this.
Yeah,
Here you go.
I've seen this a few times. I just number one wanted to thank John because his explanation of what creates like the timeline. I mean, I can remember that from 2.5 years ago almost 2.5 years ago at this point was very significant at our meeting then, and just as important for the general public and the rest of my council members now to understand. So I thank you for that. And yeah, it wasn't just as confusing for you guys, it was also just as confusing for the planning board when we had applications that came forward. The same thing, and this is like going 15 years back from when I was on it at the beginning. We would hit the same issues. Oh, well, that's actually a typo, and that one should be here. And this one is supposed to be orange, not red, or red, not orange. So just getting all of those ducks in a row, I really appreciated that process. I do remember from 2 years ago, you guys had put out a postcard that said, hey, we're thinking of changing the boundary maps. And we did get some pushback from the public, and you had already done so much work on the actual map. And because it kept hitting us with other applications, I said, look, I remember us saying, let's get this part done because this was a no-brainer, but this part, let's hold off on and see. And that was also during COVID. And so I remember that was also an issue. So I'm thrilled that you're getting this all updated now. And I do want to remind you that, yes, it does. Not only is that map part of the ordinance, but it also has to be adopted as part of the master plan because it's actually one and the same. So when we do it up here, we also have to do it down there, it's just a formality, but that's also, we'll have to kind of go through the whole update master plan process because they're exhibits in both the ordinance and the master plan, which is kind of one of the only things that actually shows up in both locations. So.
Mr. Parker, do you have any questions?
Yeah, real quick. So can you go back to where you said did you say 36 or 36,000? They're mostly houses. What area is that in? I'm sorry, I'm just.
They're,
in the red areas, so basically this, what's drawn in freehand red is the extensions.
Okay.
So
The ones that are outlined in red.
yeah, the majority of us are in the North Main and Park area.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's a few on Capner.
okay.
And the houses up on the ridge and Park Avenue down by North Main, all those houses. That are
Yeah, most,
Okay.
they exist, as Johnny mentioned, they existed in 1934, so to follow the logic and be consistent, that they should be included in the map.
Okay.
and we did review them. They are contributing. They're contributing structures. So.
Yeah.
Or they would be if they were included in the district. So.
So this is the,
This is actually really additional for me. This is actually really interesting.
You live in a beautiful historic house.
Okay, Marsha. Don't keep reminding me.
It's a very.
Don't, you also.
Just
Why
not,
not?
but it doesn't. need
Why
to
not
be
in
dates.
their period of
Yes,
significance?
yes.
Not yet, anyway. Someday Atomic ranches from the post-World War II period will be.
But I think that's what's important to know is that your house is historically significant too.
And I will
it
welcome the
happens to
moment
be-
when they want to embrace it.
We
Right.
probably have to be a separate district of its own.
Yeah.
With its own character defining features.
It actually is a really good example as to why the date that John is right. But I think that's really important to know. Marsha, I think that's really important to note is that that's the significance between your house and Tony's house is that date. And I think that was so significant 2.5 years ago in their presentation, and it's great now. That's the difference. If it falls in that date, it's considered a historically significant.
My property was a farm field until 1950. Believe it or not, it was in vegetable production. And the North 40 are on my property as well from the house with their car dumping, China dumping.
Was that whole area then? Farm?
It was all not developed. I mean, that whole stretch of Elwood, there were very few houses. There were one or two, but most of it was just open land that Emory Avenue didn't exist. It was added later. So yeah. Ms. Rossetti, do you have any questions? None?
No questions. Thank you.
Council President?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can? Okay, cool. No, well, I guess I just have like a general question, kind of asking and looking at the map and just seeing, kind of thinking about like that stretch of Capner. I'm just curious what, as far as like expanding a historic district, I guess I heard a couple of things, but could you just give like just the layman a notion as to like what are the benefits of expanding a historic district in the town that has a pretty focused and concentrated district, but what are some benefits of this? Like how does this help us? Like what's so great about it?
Well, yeah, the first line I put up there, I didn't go into some detail there, but the main thing is we have to be consistent. So as John mentioned, the pretty significance now that's been corrected. There wasn't one before. We really have an obligation to be consistent, which means we have to include the properties that that existed then. If we don't do that, there's a potential litigation, you know, someone could complain. There are studies out there that show that properties becoming historic designation actually do raise property values, raises property values of the community and those around it. So if you excluded someone from it, there's potential litigation. But the overall benefit is that communities like ours that have historic assets, it instills a sense of pride and community, and also it's an asset that we can use as for business development, you know, and tourism, things like that. So being consistent is I guess is the
Okay. All right, thanks. Yeah, I'm usually there, so it's weird, like looking at the slideshow on Zoom. I apologize. So,
works out.
no,
I'm sure.
Marcia,
Yeah.
the other thing that should be mentioned is one of the reasons why there was a push for this 2 years ago was because of the designation that we're kind of putting on hold for now because the state had kind of, it's not worth financially us going for it with the grants that you remember we had discussed that with Beth McManus at one point. This designation 2.5 years ago, that was one of the reasons why it was started, because they had done such a really good job pushing forward that. It was one of the requirements. However, just because we're not going for that designation at this time
Right.
with the state, doesn't mean that this is
So you
still
had-
not important.
Well, you
So
had
it's
done
kind of put on the back burner for that reason.
The HPC received a substantial grant to do all this work.
No, I'm talking about I'm talking about the designation, not the center
The
designation.
COG,
You talking about the
COG.
COG?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
This is in advance of COG. So we
Simultaneous.
No,
No,
it
we
was
haven't
because
done
of
COG.
the master plan update.
yeah.
Oh, was it that? I thought
That's
it
what-
also had
yeah.
something to do with the, I'm so
No.
sorry.
I remember
They
there
were
was money.
simultaneously, I thought it was
Yeah.
also helpful.
The borough spent money on this, but it was no grant involved. It came out of regular funds. I
It came
believe.
out of your, out of your regular.
Yeah.
No, we were told that if we had gone through this process, that there were grants available.
No.
But in the end,
No, I think you're confusing that with COG. So once it becomes COG, which we're working towards,
okay,
then we have to do a more detailed survey. More
Well,
frequently.
that's what we want. That's what we don't
And there's
want
money
to do.
available for that. So we want to become COG, so they can help us do a more detailed
You're
survey.
talking about center designation.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, I
Okay,
apologize.
no.
So a lot of parts here.
But when it was presented a few years ago, it was said, this is like the first step toward that. So we were
That's
also,
true, yes, that's true,
that's
yeah.
what, how it was
One of the
presented
steps,
to the
one
plan.
of the
So this
first steps.
sounds
No.
like
It's
there's a
one of the steps.
consensus to have the HPC now bring this to the planning board. That would be the next step, right? See, I forgot what your
Well,
August.
Yeah, we're
your
gonna have to
August,
ask John to do updated memo, and then
Right.
we consider it first HPC, and then we send it to planning board.
Okay, so that would be your August step.
Yeah.
Is there any objection from any of the members of council for them moving forward with this?
Can I just wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you-
No, that's all right. No, you did. I didn't have any questions, but I just wanted to make a comment. Susan had made a point earlier that we weren't looking at who owned which home when we looked at the photos. It was strictly if the building was on the map, it got a designation. And we
Within the
wanted to
date.
make sure
Yes.
Yeah,
that-
within the date, yeah.
within that date.
Yeah, I agree.
We didn't care who lived in it, who didn't live in it.
Right, that's a good point.
We were just looking at the structure on a map. So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, so, right.
I'm sure to stress that the public were involved, we have a lot of workshops. The public came
There's
in.
the liability of somebody suing, saying you're not.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
an inherently important point. I mean, for me, that's the two strongest points to do this. Number one is because it does strengthen the community's sense of place and the overall property values in the town. And number 1.5, which are virtually equally important, is that it's consistent so that nobody can sue us and say, why aren't they being treated this way? Or whatever. So is there any objection to having them move forward? Is it another way of saying, is that okay for them to move forward? All right, there is a consensus. Can I have all in favor of having them move forward, say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so it's unanimous, and thank you so much for the presentation. Pleasure to see you, John. It's been a long time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, Richard, for taking your time out tonight as well.
Yeah, thank you too. I greatly appreciate, you know, and it's fun to work with you on HPC too, because it's not just receiving applications, it's, you know, investigating and research on the history of the borough as well, so,
And creating home tours.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you again. All right, I have a number of things on my report.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Nice to meet you.
I wanted to start out by congratulating the community garden committee for their grand opening. On the agenda tonight is the MOU, which their board did review, found a typo or two, otherwise they were good. I think they appreciated the fact that we are giving them a much longer notice period so that if any governing body wanted to have them leave, we are not interrupting a harvest, and gives them plenty of time to take care of their own business, which they did not have in the current MOU they were operating under. I was really concerned about that. But I thought they had a lovely opening. I know that Councilwoman Tilly and Councilwoman, actually, everybody was there except for Councilwoman Rossetti and Councilman Johnston, but everybody else managed to stop by. And Senator Zwicker was there as well, which was good to see him. So just congratulations to them. I just want to also thank the OEM and the 13 for everything they did yesterday. You know, seeing the pictures from around the country, what happened yesterday. I feel very blessed that we just had a couple of constituents complain about flooding or some backed up culverts or whatever, because yesterday through this country, it was a horrific disaster. And I send my prayers out to all those people. I'm sure everybody on council does as well. And I also want to thank everybody involved with the fireworks. Mark Kane, who takes the lead on that, Northfield Bank for their generous donation, the fire department, the police, OEM, everybody else, and the fireworks committee, members of council, Tilly and Engelhardt, for everything that you both did as well. I also would like a consensus from the council to cancel the second meeting in August, provided that our esteemed attorney can get we have two ordinances that need to be introduced at the next meeting. The public hearings would be the first meeting in August. If those can be achieved, I would like to cancel the second meeting in August. I'm also going to be coming back when Carla's back from vacation about realigning November, because we have a meeting that is the night before the League of Municipalities, and she has an 8 a.m. class that morning, the following morning, for registrar requirements. So we'll be looking at moving that someplace, but if none of you have any problems to do that, I think I need a simple motion
I'm
to.
sorry, it's August 15th.
It would be the August. It would be the August, no, the second meeting is August 15th.
Plus, I'm trying to figure out, you said that the first is I'm sorry, the 7th and the 21st.
That sounds better. It'd be the
Yeah,
21st.
that's the 21st.
Yeah, so the ordinances that need to be introduced at the next meeting, one is the fee schedule for the construction official, which is not finished yet because it's so complicated, because it's a million little numbers in the code that have to be changed. And the second one is a issue on Main Street at 134 Main. There is a parking space that is less than 5 feet from a business driveway. And the tenants in that building are having a lot of trouble getting in and out when large vehicles park in the parking space. So the solution that the business owner and the chief of police and our DPW superintendent are all good with is to change the designation to compact cars only. And that is something that can be ticketed by the police if it's so ordained in ordinance by the council. So that would also be introduced at the next meeting with that public hearing. What date did you say? So the 7th of August?
7th of August.
Yeah, so if nobody has an objection, can I just get an all in favor of canceling the second meeting in August? We don't need it?
Aye.
Okay, great. So that would be noticed like, a week or two before that. We'll know by August 7th, we need that meeting. Next year, I would really like to just do one meeting in July and one meeting in August, which was my intention this year, but it didn't get noticed that way. So I just want to also just acknowledge and thank Hunterdon County. On our agenda tonight is an acceptance of another $67,031 for the new police department building. That is our second award, totaling just under $100,000 from the county. Maybe just around 100,000 from the county. From there, American Recovery Act money. This award is all of the county's American Recovery Act money has to be used towards ADA compliant public access uses only. So I do not believe that any of the 67,000 can be used for the processing center, including the ADA bathroom in the processing center, which is not for public access. It's just for people who have been arrested and are being processed. It is for their use. So, but this money will save us, you know, it can be used for ADA compliant ramps and sidewalks and all of the outside building features as we get ready to do the outside of the building at some point. So we do have that money now in pocket. Just to discuss the police department funding, where we are at this point. So since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, I found out I had yet another conversation with Dave Coates from CME, who has done a great job doing the GC work on the top floor regarding both the ADA compliant bathroom up there, as well as the downstairs area and architecturals. Dave relayed to me a couple of troubling things. Number one, the $32,000 for the restroom upstairs that was finished the top floor was only an estimate that was done, quote, quick and dirty, where they took length times width times height and multiplied it out by some construction number, and that's how they came out with 32,000. And the contractor who had done the rest of the upstairs, who was supposed to do that room as well, wants 20,000 more than that estimate. So, you know, I say this, and I say it with all sincerity, and you guys have all heard me say it. Government works, but it works slowly. And when you do things a certain way in government, because it makes sure that you don't get into problems like this, where things are kind of done out of sequence. And I've seen it done everywhere. I'm not pointing fingers at here, because I saw it done in Trenton when I was with the Treasury Department, and I saw it on the Freeholder Board when I was a freeholder. So I've seen it done all over the place, both sides of the aisle, all levels of government. But and that's why I just really dig in about making sure we have our ducks in a row. So there was never an architect hired to design the upstairs floor. It was all done by engineers, and so we never had a design. There is no bid docs to go out on this bathroom that the contractor wants $20,000 more for. Okay. So Dave suggested, and it's a very good suggestion, which I believe we should absolutely take, is that we bundle it into the processing center, because it will make the processing center a slightly larger job, and certainly the bathroom will become part of a larger job. So we should get a better price for the overall package. The other thing Dave told me was that that he had tried to get the former architect of record last year engaged in giving something. They never responded. So I would not ever entertain bringing them back. Finally, the other thing that Dave told me that was equally disturbing when we started talking about architecturals and getting a real design done for the processing center is that no mechanicals were done for the ground floor. So we have no mechanical design, and the mechanicals need to be done as part of whatever we do downstairs. Even if it's only the processing center, you got to do the mechanicals. So, but they have to be designed as part of this, phase. And that was not part of any of the asks that I have made to anybody, whether it's the county, whether it was the state, whether it's the federal government. And, you know, part of that also is the fact that when Dave told me there were never any architecturals 2 weeks ago, that also was never part of any of the asks. So we have, you know, and I sent this all to all of you in an email that I copied to our attorney and to, I believe, our CFO On hand at this point, we have $32,000 from the county, from American Recoveries Act money for the handicap bathroom upstairs. We have $67,000 from the county, which we can't use for any of this project. Possibly, if we run short on the bathroom upstairs, we can maybe get the county to get the state to let us use some of that money upstairs. We have $250,000 that was secured from Senator Zwicker through the state budget. We're waiting for the paperwork to get that money in hand. The downstairs processing center was estimated to be $450,000. Throw in a $32,000 bathroom, architecturals and mechanicals. We are clearly above that number. So we have $32,000 for the bathroom. We have $250,000 from the state of New Jersey. And at some point, we'll be getting roughly $169,000 from the redeveloper of the hotel project for the vacation of the current police department. He is sending a check over tomorrow for $50,000 so that we can use it as certified funds for the architect. Based on his promises to council members Long and Tilly last year in multiple meetings, that he would give us that $169,000 whenever we wanted it or needed it. Our CFO did put into our capital budget a line item with that amount of money to be used towards expenditures to this project. So he has certified that the funds are available. And as I said, the redeveloper is sending $50,000 to cover architecturals. But when you add up everything, you know, and I sent you the proposal from the architect that I'm about to nominate, we come out to $413,000 for all of that. And I don't know if that's going to be enough money. I'm very, very concerned. We won't know until we get bids in, once the drawings are done. But regardless, we got to get these drawings done because we've got to be able to roll as soon as we do. I do have a $1.2 million ask in the federal budget. It is in both Senator Booker's budget as well as Congressman Kane's budget. So, you know, people say in Congress that's about 80% guaranteed you're going to get the money. The federal budget closes September 30th, so we'll know by then. That money is to cover the whatever we can construction wise downstairs, as well as whatever else we need to add to the $1.2 million the prior mayor got from an EPA grant for the well, which is estimated at 1.75. So we need $500,000 for the well out of this 1.2, and then we'll have money left over to do this building. So that's where everything is with this project, and this is the problem with not knowing all of this before any of this construction started, because the right thing to have done would have been to evaluate the building, get architectural designs done and bid docs, and then we could have phased it and all of that. But now things are all over the place, including the generator. We have a generator at the police department that will not work with any of the electrical wattage in this building or in the new building. So Dave did recommend that that should be part of the bid, is that a bidder can take that as partial payment. But the design at some point will include adding the phase electric for a new generator. And I know our OEM coordinator is already looking through FEMA grants because that generator is going to be at least $100,000. So having said all of that, I sent you documents from Paul Sarkois and Sartor, PS&S. They're in Warren, New Jersey, and Somerset County. Angela Gonzalez, the lead architect, was out here and spent hours with the chief going through the building, taking measurements and photographs. And they have proposed, rather than doing an hourly rate, a not to exceed for the entire processing center, the mechanicals, the bathroom, and the bid docs, flat $36,000, which I think is a very good price. Dave Coates told me to expect $50,000. So I am making a nomination and awarding to PS&S as the architect on record to do this police department building. to the end of 2023, December 31st. And I'd like concurrence from the council. Can I have a motion to concur, please? Is there a second?
Parker.
Thank you. And is there any discussion on this? I mean, we really, and I appreciate that there isn't, because we really, time is of the essence. They have guaranteed us these docs by August, so we can, get an estimate and get out to bid. If we have the money to do it, with their estimates, we'll do it immediately. And if we don't, we'll wait to see what happens by September 30th, and then we can go out immediately with that, or try to figure out another financial directive. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Ms. Engelhardt,
No,
Ms. Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
All right, and my final thing is, it's come to my knowledge that Mr. Johnson is no longer representing the Fleming Castle as our liaison, because their bylaws actually have in their bylaws that our liaison is a voting member trustee, and because of the amount of school children and the fact that they get different grants and funding, they felt it was not appropriate. It was not a unanimous decision, but it was not appropriate. So I am naming Susan Engelhardt as lead.
thank you.
You're welcome. And that's the end of my report. Council President, do you have a report?
I actually do not. I'll have a courts and police department report next time. Thanks.
Thank you. When is the swearing in of our new officer, Council President?
You know what? I gotta look at my text, but he's. Was it tomorrow? Yeah, because I couldn't make it. So yeah, it was either today or tomorrow. So it's tomorrow.
It's 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
We have the DPW.
Yeah, we have
I guess we'll be there.
Is it in here?
It should be. Hold up. Let me.
Well, you'll have a good turnout and support if it's in here. So, okay.
Looking through my text. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
That's
No,
good.
that-
Yeah. Hopefully it's in here.
Yeah.
Not that you have the most beautiful room to swear anybody in, everyone.
Not necessarily.
We can all go to the DPW meeting, so, even though we weren't invited,
It just won't be.
that's all right. Anybody? find-
I cannot find it.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. with Borough Hall. Okay, great. Vice Council President Tilly, do you have a report?
I do. Let's see. We have the DPW meeting tomorrow at 10, as well as I have a fire officers meeting tomorrow evening. HPC is next Wednesday, the 19th. We can all agree that the 2023 fireworks event was a huge success. On behalf of the fireworks committee, the following recognition and thank yous are in order. Dr. McGann and Dr. Anthony DeMarco and the Reddington Fleming Intermediate School for allowing us to hold the event on their property. Northfield Bank, without their generous donation, this event would not have been possible. Rita's Italian Ice, the donation of 25% of their ice sales helped fund the DJ entertainment. Speaking of Dr. D's Entertainment, keeping all the kids in the crowd entertained and providing the music for the event. Our Fire Marshal Ken McCormick and Steve Eckert assisted with permits and layout of the safety of the launch site. Alan Gelter and the Flemington Fire Department provided fire apparatus and staff, as well as Raritan Township Fire Department was there providing fire apparatus and staff. President Gary Brewer and Flemington Raritan First Aid and Rescue Squad for providing their rescue apparatus and staff. Flemington Police Department Chief Rotella providing police vehicles and staffing for the event, as well as the Flemington Police Explorers who provided general assistance with road closures and parking. Flemington Office of Emergency Management, Corporal Brian McNally for setting up the command post and updating the event action plan. Flemington Department of Public Works for helping set up the caution tape for the exclusion zone, installing the temporary no parking signs, installing and removal of road closure barriers, field debris cleanup, street and parking lot cleaning with the street sweeper and the event trash disposal. Borough Hall staff clerk and Rebecca Newman for obtaining certificates of insurance and issuance of purchase orders. Garden State Fireworks for another great and safe show. And a special thank you to Mark Hain. Mark has been the sole organizer of the fireworks since the split with Raritan Township Parks and Rec. It's his expertise and guidance that allowed this event to run as smoothly as it did. So hopefully, I believe I hear next year's dates are already on the books. So we'll just have to make sure that we're gonna have a debriefing meeting, I believe, beginning of August for this year, and what it is that we can do to try to improve on next year's event.
I'm funding,
Yeah.
start now. So, thank you very much. Are you finished?
I am, that's it,
Great.
thank you, sorry.
Councilwoman Engelhardt?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I want to thank you for appointing me to the Museum House Committee. That's something that is near and dear to my heart. And, you know, I did want to mention about Edna too. I know you already mentioned her, but she was, you know, really one of the first people that I met when I started volunteering for, you know, the borough 15 years, 16 years ago, whatever it was. And as a very, very long time planning board member, you know, people joke that they started on planning board and they left on planning board and it was still there. Like, I think she was 80 when I started on planning board, and she passed away just shy of 98 years over the weekend. And she's just a really, really huge example of volunteerism and what, you know, when you don't like something that's going on in town, or you're wondering why something isn't, you know, she didn't like how the flowers were kept, so she got out there and watered the flowers, and anything that she thought she could help with, she stepped up. And I hope that we all kind of use her as our guide. I know I really do, as far as planning board goes. Like I said, I served with her for 15 years, and she always she was always very thoughtful with her words. And then when she did finally speak on something, it had a perspective that none of us could bring to the table historically. And it was really, sometimes I would think I would be considering a subject one way, and then she would open her mouth and say something about the subject, and it then actually kind of influenced me in another way. So I just want to give my best to their family and thank Edna for all the years of service to the community, and specifically the planning board. Other issues on the planning board, tomorrow night there's a meeting at 7 o'clock. There is a completeness hearing for Worksville, which is a site along Route 12. That's not a public hearing. It's just completeness, which basically means you have all your paperwork in. So it's not for public comment, but it is on the agenda for tomorrow if you're interested in that one. There are 2 use variances on the agenda for public hearing, one 13 Brown Street, the other is 53 East Main. The subcommittee is continuing their work. In fact, Marcia and I had a meeting this afternoon that was successful. Once I managed to not get kicked off with my connection. And finally, the HPC presentation that we just heard, I'll make sure to bring up tomorrow night to ask them for kind of put off some time in September agenda for that to be heard. We try to anticipate what's coming down the pipe, and I want to make sure that we leave some time on the agenda in September to make sure that's to be heard. School referendum punch lists are being finalized for the Fleming Raritan School District. They also mentioned at the last meeting that they anticipate a revised LRFP, which was something that was important to us because that gives us a good idea of not only demographics, but any future plans they have for construction. So I'll be looking for an update as that goes forward. As well as, let's see, the next Columbia American School District meeting is July 24th, which is simultaneous to our next meeting at 7 p.m. The next high school district meeting is July 17th. So that's nice that that doesn't coincide. So maybe we can, some of us attend that. I did also, as Marcia mentioned, attend the garden opening, which was just a lovely event. So I want to thank the community garden group for that. I was approached by a youth group that was interested in doing some cleanup work at the park. So I'm going to be reaching out to Mike Campion as well as Marcia to talk about exactly what logistics are required for that. Because I frankly wasn't sure. I know there's some insurance that might need to be dealt with. So I'll talk about that later. And that's my whole report.
Thank you. Councilman Parker.
I don't have anything, but I will have this comment. So that group, you need to refer them to me because I'm trying to get a group of people together for beautification cleanup. So you can refer them to me and I'll go from there.
Okay, they were specifically interested in the park, so I guess that's why they.
Okay, it
Or
doesn't
so,
matter.
but, you know, we can work together on that. That's great.
Take care of it. And other than that, I don't have anything.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have to add is there will be a Shade Tree Commission meeting this Wednesday evening, the 12th at 7 p.m. That's it. Thank you.
Is that live and on Zoom or only by Zoom?
They do it hybrid.
Sorry?
Hybrid. So some of them are here. Yeah. And then also on Zoom. Yeah.
Can you get me on that agenda so that I can talk about the newsletter?
Yeah, I can send an email out tonight and ask them to put you on. Yeah.
Tell me
This
when.
coming Wednesday night.
Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I probably have to zoom in.
Okay. I Zoom in as well. So yeah.
Stopping by also was talk about shade trees.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all the reports. We don't have an administrator anymore. That needs to get off this agenda. We're up to public comment session number 1. You are here and have a comment to make to the council. Just need your name and address and if you want to say something, you need to come up.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I can say it from here.
No, you can't. It's got to
No,
be
you gotta
recorded.
come up.
You
Oh, okay.
have to come up.
Okay, so
And I need your name and your address. Or
my name is Gabriela Bonavent. I am from United Way. And I'm here
Can
because
you spell your last name for our deputy clerk?
Bonnavent. Gabriela is just with one L and an A. So, I submitted a permit to the police officer, to Chief Rotella, and he was supposed to be here to talk about it, about approve the permit for July 29th to have a summer fiesta and close Fulton Road.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's the first item
It's
on
on
the
our
agenda.
agenda.
It's on the
It's
agenda.
on the agenda. Close the room?
Oh,
Yes. Agenda.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
And then Maureen, you just need to go to participants and see if anybody's got their hand raised. Susan's not Pamela, she's up on top, the word's gray,
Up on the right.
the gray
There you
tab.
go.
Click
Oh,
on that.
Click on
Oh,
that.
attendees.
There you go.
Nobody has their hand raised. Okay. See Robin's on. Okay, moving on. We have no minutes to approve yet. Is Carla's still catching up and then she'll do all the ones that were left behind for her. Under consent agenda, we have resolution 2023-240, authorizing the closure of Fulton Road for summer fiesta on July 29th between the hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Number 2 is resolution 2023-241, amending resolution number 2023-32, redevelopment attorney, and 2023-33 bond council, clarifying the borough's appointments thereof. That's the our bond council, as I mentioned to you a couple meetings ago, has merged with a larger firm. They will still be giving us the same exact people in the same exact office, but it is a technical name change. Resolution 2023-242, authorizing a refund in the amount of $581.56 for Cortez and Hay from utility overpayment on block 12, known as 38 Pennsylvania Avenue, Resolution 4. Resolution 2023-243, accepting an additional grant in the amount of $67,031 for the Flemington Police Station, ADA compliant parking and ADA compliant community energy operations reception center for the spending period of January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. Resolution 2023-244, approving a chapter 159 resolution for the insertion of funds into the 2023 municipal budget, the amount of $91,031 for the county under the Department of Human Services. Resolution 2023-246, approval to submit a grant application and execute a grant agreement with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the NJDOT 2024 road improvement project. Resolution 2023-247, authorizing the execution of an amended agreement between the Borough of Flemington and the Flemington Borough Community Garden Organization for use of a portion of Tuckamorgan Park. And resolution 2023-249, authorizing the extension of time to mail the third quarter tax bills and setting a due date of August 18, 2023, if needed. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Tilly move.
Is there a second?
Parker second.
Okay, anybody want anything off? If not, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Ms. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Just because I can't resist moments of government education. Number 5, the chapter 159 resolution that is not seen very often in government. It's when, Bill, and you stop me if I'm wrong, it's when there's unseen funds coming in on how to accept it into your budget. This is the money from the 2 American Recoveries Act grants we got from the county that was not anticipated in our budget. Right, Bill?
Correct.
Bill, I'd like to brush off my municipal authority government stuff every once in a while. Thank you. But I think it's important because you don't see chapter 159 very often. So it's nice when we get it because it's unfound money, new money. Under the regular agenda, we do have, I believe, Maureen, it's resolution 2023-51, which is the rescinding of the contract for Bloomfield Avenue. This is rescinding resolution number 2023-121 concerning the award of contract for the Bloomfield Avenue Improvement Project. So what's happened is we awarded Revax to do the Bloomfield Avenue project. Revax had some staff changes. They were and are, again, a certified small business enterprise. Under state law, in order to qualify for this project, you have to be SBE certified at the time of award. Because of the staff change, they did not send in the right paperwork, and so they were not technically certified. And the DOT has a ironclad rule on this. They will not waiver. You either are or you aren't. So they've already gotten recerted, but at the time of award, they weren't. So the iBank will not fund this project to Revax. And if we go to the next bidder, it's a $10,000 difference, which of course we don't have. So after a small discussion today between Mike Campion, Rob Martucci, who's overseeing this project, and our attorney, there was a unanimous consensus that we should rescind the award and go back out to bid. Hopefully, since everybody knows Revax was low bid and when he came in, hopefully everybody will go a little lower. Well, I don't know. It's an ugly thing in government when everybody knows what everybody does. It is.
I mean, it could benefit, as you say, Mayor, but I've never seen it.
Absolutely.
There was grant money related to that project. And
That's the money that. So there was grant money and there was iBank money.
Right, we have a resolution.
We
2
accept,
weeks
right,
ago.
we accepted the grant money.
Right, and I just want to make sure that there's no a threat to losing that grant money because we're taking it away.
I asked that question today and all of this is coming through DOT.
Mhm.
So all they wanted to know is that we were accepting the money and that we were going to go forward in the project, which we did.
Which
And
we
now
did.
the DOT is also saying, well, you can't do it. Yes.
Okay, so
So
we
we
accepted the money, but we just have to adjust the bid.
Let's sure hope so, because, tomorrow Rob Martucci will put this notice back in.
And we can't take the second bidder. It's about the price.
Right,
So it's like a
Very
very
unusual.
unusual
Yeah, that was
situation.
your public bid. Yeah,
Right.
We could have.
see that.
Perhaps taking the second bidder had they been, but so now everyone knows everyone else's prices. It's a
right.
weird situation.
And if they keep the calls, gonna make sure they all did, so,
I've had 3 bids for
yeah.
projects and everybody comes to everybody bids, right, the way public bids work.
We'll
It's
get-
going to make sure that the resolution we passed a few weeks ago, accepting that money isn't
I know,
threatened at all
I know.
because of this little change. That's all.
Well, we accepted it, we told them we were gonna do the work, we did the work, it's not our fault,
Got it.
right?
That's what I was
We
supposed to-
awarded, so this is a DOT iBank.
Uh-huh.
You know, the iBank has a DEP arm and a DOT arm, the DOT arm is saying, no, you can't use these guys. So, and they're not telling us, we have to go to the next bid, they're basically saying, you
Go
just
after
can't use
these
these guys.
Yeah.
That's all they said, you can't use these guys and get
But
our
now
money.
they have a sort, so they bid again, it's very weird.
It is
It's very odd.
It
Very
is
odd.
weird, so
Well,
things get lost in
You know, that
translation.
happens in the, they're very strict on, if you don't have certification, you don't get it.
Yeah.
So they, so
Period.
Carnegie,
Just don't-
apparently they actually had the certification, but every year
Yeah, but if
they're
you don't-
supposed to
you
send in a
have-
form
Yeah.
to let them know, and they didn't send in a form. That,
Typical
so,
small businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't dot that up.
They
Yeah.
don't- they don't-
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's, and it's all over a
I
staff
just
change.
work with a company that just say.
So can I have a motion, to rescind, resolution 2020, I don't know if that's the right number, I thought it was 150s, but. Can I, is there a second?
Engelhardt will second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Ms. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes,
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have no work session tonight. Yes,
I apologize, I missed one of the resolution for that.
we did it when you were in the restroom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I missed
We did
it.
it
I might have missed it. I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
We
that-
deputized her,
Yeah.
we deputized her prior to, the roll call. I did, no, prior, no, and then,
So. you
and
put
then
the word-
I called the roll on her vote, and then she called the roll on who's
Okay,
there.
I walked in for the roll, so you.
It was before
It's
that.
like, it's fine, I just want.
It was. Okay. Nope, it's all good. All right, can I have, we're opening up to the second public comments? Any comments?
Wait, our agenda, we have other agenda items.
What do you have?
We have,
We have, yeah, the judge.
I have all these items.
I don't have the agenda that was on my desk.
Yeah, that's it. It's number,
I don't have it.
7.
I don't have it. I didn't this one. I thought there was other stuff too.
yeah.
What did you guys, no,
here's the regular agenda appointing,
I have nothing on this regular agenda, there's nothing on this regular agenda.
This is different.
no, we don't, I don't have it on the agenda, but I have all the.
All the resolution,
Yeah,
Okay,
all the individual resolution.
Yeah.
it's on this one, it's on the one at the table.
I have the one you got.
Okay,
on my-
there
my
it is, you
computer.
have it, okay, so regular agenda items, I'm sorry, so I, looked for each other stuff too. Resolution 2023-238, appointing Charles Caro as municipal court judge, can I have a motion, please?
Chili move.
Is there a second?
Hold on a second.
Any discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Ms. Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes,
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Resolution 2023-239, appointing Bianca Watkins as interim municipal court administrator, can I have a motion, please?
chili move.
Is there a second?
Long a second.
All right. Jeremy.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Engelhardt,
Yes.
Ms. Tilly,
Yes,
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Thank you. And this is why I did the resolution 238-245 awarding PSNS under my report percentage. Sorry.
It's done and done.
So it's done and done. So, and then I did ask to have the agenda while you were also out, to have the agenda.
I have received that.
Oh, you were changed. So,
Yeah.
2023-250 will go to, following the executive session. Again, we have no work session, we're up to public comments, number 2, we're all good, nobody in the public has any comments.
Wait,
Anybody-
I had a quick question. I'm sorry. What, I must have missed something. Resolution 248, the architect. Did we,
Did that
Yeah.
report, because I
Yeah.
didn't see it on this agenda, because it's not on my agenda.
It was under the mayor's report.
Maureen, just hit that gray tab again.
You voted for it.
Yeah.
okay, we flipped something. I guess but okay. Sorry.
In the package, it's on the desk, has
I'm
nothing.
looking at the agenda from the website. Sorry. I heard us amend it and I guess I just kind of had a lapse. Okay, sorry. Ignore me.
All right. Anybody from the public, watching from Zoom have any comments? Seeing none. I will, okay, the next, is payment of bills resolution 2020-251. Authorized payment of the bills in the amount of $1,238,748.48. Can I have a motion? Is there a second?
Parker second.
Any discussion while Bill is on the line? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Engelhardt,
Yes.
Miss Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Thank
Yes.
you. Before we go into executive session, Maureen, I want to say thank you for sticking on tonight.
No problem.
Truly appreciated that you stepped up. And also to Rebecca, who really helped with the agenda. I'm not quite sure why I have 2 agendas, one with a big blank section or not, but it's okay. It's all good. You're just winging it. All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss resolution, I think, 2023-50. It's on the agenda, okay. 2050, approving the award of class. There will be action taken, most likely action taken following the executive session. I have a motion. Is there a second to go into executive session?
Engelhardt second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Rosetti,
Yes.
Engelhardt,
Yes.
Miss Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Good night, Gabriella.
Good night. We'll talk.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and come back in.
So we pause that. The dormitory turkey's out there.
If she, I'm sitting out on the sidewalk somewhere, Chris, please. Oh, I wanted to get out by 9. I think we might get out by 9.
I was gonna say, Marcia, I never left here yet, and with the sunshine, I think I just missed it. It just said, which is fine. This case will be interesting, so I don't mind. I'll be here yet. It's booking, the trip is booking. So I'm leaving Wednesday, I'll be back. I'll be back the night before the next meeting. So unless I'm delayed, I only missed 1 meeting of another client, so
You're gonna have 2 ordinances for us at that next meeting.
I'm gonna do one tomorrow and Kate's gonna do it.
Okay. All right, so we're back into open session and following our closed session, and I am looking for, bear with me 1 second. And I'm looking for a motion to approve or adopt resolution 2023-250, approving the award of a Class A cannabis license to Bless Wellness. Is there a motion?
Tilly, move.
Is there a second?
Parker second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Miss Rosetti,
Yes.
Miss Engelhardt,
Yes.
Miss Tilly,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And that's it. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Tilly, move.
Is there a second?
Parker second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Green, thank you. for doing such a
Jeremy,
good
can you
job.
come back next time?
Welcome.
I'll be there next time. Yep. In the flesh.
So I'm before 8 hours from now, I'll be bored.
This is what happens when we need to shut off the red switch.
Yeah.
I haven't had any fun.
Hi, everybody.
Enjoy, Jeremy.
Enjoy.
He's still in row, but
Thanks, Nicole. What do you want to know?
I just had a quick question about something in your mayor report, real quick, the 50K coming for the architects, for the police
Oh,
department. You
from
said it's for
coming, the
redevelopment.
redeveloper owes us money for this, for the current building we're in.
Yes.
So our contract with him says that when we vacate that building, he owes us the balance, which is like $169,000.
Yeah.
but he's gonna advance us 50,000.
Okay, and it's not any of the redevelopers for like.
No, just, no,
That's just the police.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it.
okay.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. Nice speaking with you.
I'm always accept that grade.
I just have to remember.
There you go.